Alright, welcome to the inaugural episode of the Idol Threat Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Idol. Journalist, a student, I just graduated. I figured I gotta do something. So wrestling's what I know, that's what I got through. School, doing just wrestling story, pretty much after wrestling story, working with Border City Wrestling, Windsor. I'm from Windsor. Those guys helped me out, pretty much owe them my my diploma based upon Border City Wrestling. So thanks Scott Demore, Aiden Prince, A1, and anybody who helped me along the way getting where we are. And now the Idol Podcast, in our first debut episode, we're going to talk to Reverso of Border City Wrestling and now also Impact Wrestling. He just, he was there before on last year, I believe, in Impact Wrestling. But he had a match against Canada's own Josh Alexander, big name in Canada now, just debuted on Impact last week. Huge impact on Impact Wrestling. No, I didn't mean to say it like that, but Josh Alexander is probably the next big thing, and Ethan Page, his tag team partner, he came in with. I really enjoyed watching them fight Reverso, and Sheldon Jean, another Border City Wrestling graduate, was in that match as well, and he did a great job. I thought it wasn't a squash match. They got their moves in, they did what they had to do. This episode, I think I open up with this day in wrestling history. It seems like, a few podcasts do that. I don't know if I'll keep doing it, but you tell me what you think out there, like what you like about the show, and or what you don't like, and I'll change it around. This is the first one, so I really don't have a format tonight. We're kind of just bouncing all around here, so don't want to get too off topic. So we'll go with this day in wrestling. Tommy Dreamer in 2000 became the ECW champion for his first and only time in the real ECW. And that same night, he lost the belt to Justin Credible after he beat Taz only moments later to lose to Justin Credible. Tommy Dreamer, obviously on Impact Wrestling. I'm a big Impact fan, so you're going to see that more on this show than WWE. I watched WrestleMania. I know I'm getting bouncing around here again, but I watched WrestleMania, and I hadn't really watched much WWE. And pretty much I nailed in the coffin, I think, for me with... I know it's 2 weeks ago, but I didn't enjoy that show at all. It opened great, I thought, with... Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar. That was a good match. The Hogan thing was stupid. But Rollins won the titles, which was cool, and they also had a good match. I know you think it was so quick, but he beat up Seth as he tried to get in the ring. That was cool. And then Seth, 3 curb stomps there. That's all I needed to see. Paul Heyman made that show exciting, coming out and saying now. And then after that, I don't even remember. It was very forgettable Mania. I think all the hype I said, people saying it was good. I didn't see it, and it was 8 hours. I had people over. Double D was there. And then, he didn't even stay to the end because it was already 12:30 at night. He worked in the morning. Who can stay up that late? We started watching at 7. Thank God we didn't start watching. I don't even know when the pre-show starts, but, there's some matches on there I would have probably liked better than I saw on the main card, but, if people work, I can't be home from... But I don't know when it started. Noon? Was it noon? Double D? I don't know. Anyway, I gave up on him. But we attended Impact came to Windsor recently on March 22nd and 23rd. And they put on basically 2 nights of entertaining. I thought better than WrestleMania quality matches. But from what I saw, I enjoyed Impact's tapings for sure. They were 2 nights, which ended up being 4 episodes on Twitch. You can watch on Friday nights. You can watch Impact. I missed last night's episode, unfortunately, or the other night, the last episode, on last Friday there. But I was there, so I saw it. I just don't know how they exactly edited. I know Moose. I remember he fought against the Rascals. That was the match I remember most for some reason. Moose has caught my eye. Switching to the heel, I like Moose a lot better now. I think he's doing a great job there. We saw Tommy Dreamer a few times on those tapings, we were talking about Dreamer. Tessa Blanchard, unfortunately, who I was most excited to see, to tell you the truth. I Saw her earlier in the day not wrestling. I'm not a huge women's wrestling fan usually, but Tessa is probably my favorite wrestler going right now today. Like in general, man or woman. I think Tessa is really awesome. I always think Tully Blanchard was my favorite horseman of all time. So anyways, I missed her match. It was the only match I missed the whole weekend of Impact being out in Windsor. I had to eventually go out for, I'm a smoker unfortunately, and I decided to go for a cigarette really quick, thought I'd bounce in, ended up out there a little bit longer, it took me longer to get inside, I missed flat out the only match, and I'm so sorry I missed it. It was Tessa's match. So yeah, I didn't get to see her. Bought a Tessa t-shirt though, which was cool. And then we got to see the first time I'd seen Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix live, and I was thoroughly impressed. That was the best. Pentagon up there is my favorite male wrestler right now. Phoenix was awesome too. And we saw them like 2 or 3 times. They're featured throughout the show quite a bit. Run in. So yeah, that was awesome, that Impact, and they're coming back I have to double to July. I think they're coming back in July, I want to say July 29th or so. I said April 29th because next weekend they have their Rebellion pay-per-view, which will be the return of Rob Van Dam on Impact. So I mean, I'm a huge ECW fan, I should mention, like huge ECW. ECW was my shit. So like anytime an ECW guy comes back, you gotta be like excited to see on a regular basis. Rob Van Dam, he did sporadic appearances here and there, WWE for the last, 5 whatever years. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of WWE. So seeing him in Impact was cool. He had Sabu. They were at the United We Stand last event they had there on WrestleMania weekend. I didn't actually see it. I saw like clips of the Sabu and Rob Van Dam reunited against Pentagon and Phoenix, but I can't say I really saw a lot of the match, so I won't really get into that. I won't pretend like I saw it because I've been in school. I've been focused on school the last little while, so now that I'm done, it's gonna be more full throttle, watching wrestling, reviewing wrestling. I collect VHS tapes. So I have a ton of wrestling. I think I'll go through those, maybe review one. I don't know. It's still like we're working on the format of the show. Like we don't exactly know what we're doing. I guess you could say right now we're just kind of going with it tonight because we figured, we had to get it going. It was like now or never. Like we keep putting it off. But he said, here we go. Let's finally shut the fuck up about not doing it and talking about it all the time, and here we are. So what you like, what you don't like, let me know. We got the El Reverso interview coming up with me and El Reverso. We talked at my school last week about the interview. I'm aiming to have an interview at least with a wrestler on or somebody related to the wrestling business regardless. I know a lot of people. I have a bunch of interviews lined up. You're going to see Aiden Prince is going to make an appearance on the show for sure. A1, a lot of these guys, they've been in Impact. They're getting Aiden Prince has next week, I think, on Twitch. His match against Austin Ace is going to be, and that's a big showcase for him. A1, he's been there before. He was on Spike TV on TNA way back in the day. We will have him on the show. Like a lot of guys coming up. I talk to these guys, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get interviews. I guarantee we're gonna get a lot of good interviews with people from Border City Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, hopefully. Whoever, reach out, talk to other guys. The podcast goes well. We get phone calls. We can talk to people. The goal, I would say, ultimately, I have to give a big shout out. One of the reasons I like podcasting, what made me want to do podcasting, was Jim Cornette. And I mean, if we could ever get Corny to call an interview with him, eventually, that's, I would say, maybe the goal of this, to have him on the show. Or I would like Tommy Dreamer, which is a possibility. I'll try reaching out to Tommy through social media. Maybe he'll do the show, because that'd be cool. Because I know he comes down to Windsor for Impact, production meetings, whatnot. I was lucky enough to see some of the, I worked on the ring crew for the Border City and Impact tapings at St. Clair there, and I was lucky to see, Lance Storm showed up last night, or the other day on Impact. He was there, saw him at the production meetings, Jimmy Jacobs, all these guys, Impact's got it going on, they got good. I think Scott Demore, Don Callis are doing a really great job at, it made me interested in wrestling again. I was really not too much interested in what was going on TV. I always supported local shows like Border City. If WWE came to Windsor, or TNA when they would come before, I'd go to the events because it's here, but I really had a hard time. I would just live in the past of watching old tapes and listening to shoot interviews, and I would still, obviously enjoy that. But Impact has got me watching. I'm paying attention to Impact. Ring of Honor, too. Shout out to them. I really didn't care about Ring of Honor for a long time, since the days of, Nigel McGuinness and stuff like that. I hadn't really watched, and I only had free-to-air television for watching actual TV besides, the internet and stuff like that. So Ring of Honor has a syndicated show though on Charge, I think 50.4 in my area. And anyway, so Ring of Honor, they're cool. MLW, I started watching them. I watched Battle Riot 2, I think it was the second one they did, because Cornette's announcers. So I thought, I like Jim Cornette. I like listening to him announce. I like listening to what he has to say about the business. I think to myself, I think a lot like Cornette. I usually agree with almost everything Cornette says. I was an ECW guy. That's where we different. But not so much the hardcore wrestling wasn't really what made me crazy for ECW though. I liked guys like Rob Van Dam. He uses chairs and stuff, but it was just the technical matches against Jerry Lynn and workers like that, like Kid Cash. I always liked watching. It was fun to watch New Jack, of course. It wasn't like I hated New Jack. I loved New Jack. I loved his style of wrestling. That was fun to watch too. Everybody had their own thing in ECW. That's why I thought maybe ECW unique. But lots happening in wrestling is my point with MLW, Impact, interesting stuff for me. I like it. AEW is coming. You can't really. There hasn't been a time like this for wrestling fans since, what, Monday Night Wars really. I don't want to compare it to that because you don't know what it is, or if they even have a chance against WWE. WWE isn't what it was when WCW came along. They're an incredible, I don't watch, but no, Vince is one of my heroes. He built this empire that seems untouchable. But we'll see. Maybe AEW is going to be the ones that, bring wrestling. Maybe it'll be a Monday Night War. And I'm not counting on it, but it's definitely an interesting time, and it gives a lot of people places to work, just in the States, and I hope a lot Impact. God, the Border City guys getting there. I'd like to see there's a number of guys around Windsor that I'd like to see in AEW. That'd be cool. And then AEW is the Double Down pay-per-views finally upon us, or the event, whatever. I don't know. I call them pay-per-views. I don't know if that's how it works anymore, but I grew up ordering pay-per-views on Cogeco Cable, Channel 11, whatever. So I would, that's why I call them pay-per-views. But the big event, Double Down, obviously everybody knows what I'm talking about. Gold Dust versus, or Dustin Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes has now been announced. I saw a few minutes before I started doing this podcast. That's huge. They've obviously tagged up and everything in WWE, but I think on this level, and now with Dusty being gone, this is a way for them to honor Dusty with this incredible match, and how Dusty changed the business, what Cody's doing for the business right now. It's unbelievable. So I think what we're going to do now, though, is roll. I just thought I'd give you an introduction of what I'm about, what I like about wrestling for the first episode, really. If you like, tune back in. What I'm going to say next week, we'll have a more organized, I promise, another interview. So we're going to, right now, roll to the interview with El Reverso. Okay, so today I'm here with Border City Wrestling superstar and now Impact superstar, El Reverso. How are you today?
Good. Thank you very much, Joey.
So we saw you last week on Impact was that your Impact debut?
Oh, I've wrestled for Impact Wrestling before, but on Explosion. But that was my debut on the actual main program, Impact Wrestling.
Now, it was a great first performance, but a lot of people kind of maybe thought you got your spots in there, but kind of a squash, quick match by Josh Alexander and Ethan Page from the North. But a lot of people probably don't know that in PWA wrestling that you had some epic battles with Josh Alexander. Would you like to talk about those?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, first I want to say that as a tag team, Ethan Page and Josh Alexander, they are an overwhelming force. You know, to have that opportunity to take what we did in those matches in PWA and put it on the main stage was an amazing opportunity. It feels like I'm knocking on the door, really doing something great with my career. But to really showcase what I'm capable of would be to look into those matches that I had with Josh, because we did what I felt was such amazing things. We had such an epic battle, as you say, you know, where like it was more of a back and forth, you know, and like both amazing athletes. Like I like to hold myself like to a certain degree where I feel like I have a certain ability, and I really tested that ability against Josh, because he is, like, people say that he's the best in Canada, and it's no exaggeration. He really is a talented individual. He is really just breaking through with what he's capable of doing, and I think that his presence on the mainstream is really going to start to overwhelm people. It's really going to start to take its presence.
Well, if he's considered to be the best in Canada, then you're certainly got to be up there, because I watched those matches, and some of the stuff you guys were doing was insane. Like, he tied you up, your arms behind your back, and power bombed you. You tied him up. You were doing hurricanranas and flips with no arms. It was really like some really cool stuff that I've like never seen before.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, like I do, like I said, I like to hold myself to a certain standard, and I do feel that if I'm in the conversation, then that's where I feel I need to be. You know, like I feel like I can go anywhere and do anything and be on any part of the card and really like put a presence there and really make sure that I'm known, you know what I mean, and kind of stand out.
You definitely are, because at the Border City shows a lot, you always hear "Let's go Reverso" chants. The fans, they remember you for, like, you were there way back at the Chicharo Club days. Then for almost 10 years you were gone. What was, like, can you kind of explain what happened there?
Yeah, I moved to Edmonton, Alberta. I wanted to try and like, I was a machinist by trade as well, and that's when I was first coming up in the business, you know what I mean? So you're struggling, you're trying to make some money and make some ends meet and such, and things are going really well out there, and I knew some people out there, and Johnny Devine, Hotshot Johnny Devine, also was out there, right? So I got some recommendations from Scott Demore about where I should start wrestling and things, and I wrestled there for a couple years before I had a family, and things sort of didn't work, and I had to make that decision. I had that ultimatum where it was like, do I put that same effort into the family? Do I put that same effort into wrestling? Like, if I don't have that support, it's really hard to make everything work, right? So I took a little bit of time off to try and do what I could to make the family thing work, you know, and it just, in the end, I had to do what made me happy, you know what I mean? And wrestling was one of those big things that made me happy. And thankfully now I have the support of my family, my kids. You know, I have 2 little Reversos that wear a mask to the shows, and they really love and support what I do. So that's a very good feeling, you know?
Yeah, the fans, I think, always, like, even if you're not the biggest wrestling fan, when you see what the high flyer guys like yourself do, you can't help but be like, wow, look at that. And I was like, was that always what your goal was getting into wrestling? Like, you wanted to be like, who did you watch kind of too? Like,
believe it or not, no. I never really did a backflip until I first got to the Can-Am Wrestling School. Plug, by the way.
we can get to that.
Awesome. Anyways, what I did watch when I was younger is was influenced by Rey Mysterio, Ultimo Dragon, Chris Jericho. I did appreciate their fighting style, but I always thought like a Devon Dudley. Like, I always thought I was going to be like a good talker, or, you know what I mean? Like Jericho, like I said, I really was follow some of his stuff. Yeah. So I thought I was going to be more of the talker, and I didn't know I was going to be more like, you know, have that athletic nature to me until I was tested. And it's like, you know, a prize stallion, you know what I mean, has never reached its potential until it's broken. And that was the thing, is I went to Can-Am Wrestling School, I was tested, and I reached my potential, is what I feel, and I'm really starting to display that now.
Yeah, we definitely all see it from our verse, so I'm always excited when you come out. During those go back to the Josh Alexander,
yep.
You did sustain an injury fighting him, right? Did you miss any time or anything like that?
I missed 6 months. It was something else, actually. Like, when I went into that match with Josh, I think that my expectation of how tough he was not up to where it should have been. And yeah, things got pretty intense. And the thing is the adrenaline was going so much because when you're in that moment, you know what I mean, and you're a part of that struggle, like your adrenaline's going so hard that you're trying to reach it. You know what I mean? Like working so hard that I didn't even realize until the very next day. And we were at the Impact tapings, and I was in Toronto, and I was just there, in case they needed an extra body or stuff like that. And I didn't tell them that I couldn't even tie my shoes. So if they were going to use me in the match, I was going to, just tape it up and go. But I remember being a part of the setup process, and a good friend of mine there, Matt, was like seeing me struggle, and he goes, "Just let me help you out with that, man." He's like, "Oh, heaven help you if they try and use you today, right?" So, but yeah, that was something that, it's hard to tell when it happened during that match. And to tell you, if I could pinpoint exactly when it happened, I wouldn't exactly know. I could tell you a few, ideas, oh, could have happened there. But to tell you the truth, I know it happened before one point. I'm slamming the mat, and I'm hitting that mat as hard as I can, even with because I broke my left wrist, and I didn't feel it at that point. I'm just drilling it off the ground. So, adrenaline was a big part of getting through that right there. And yeah, it was kind of like a surprise to some of the fans when I did come back, because I wasn't fully healed, but Josh was trying to make a statement, you know what I mean, that he was the dominant performer, and he was going after my tag partner, Super Kamikaze in PWA, and he was going to make an example of him, and I just couldn't sit back. I went up to watch, you know what I mean, and I couldn't sit in the back and just watch him do that. So I did a little run out. I think that's on the YouTube as well, and I kind of let my emotions get the best of me, and I said, you know what, ready or not, I'm going to come in next time, and we're going to do this. And, it was what it was. I think in the end, I know of the 3 matches, I never really got that W, but in the end, I did prove to Josh that I belong there and that I did have what it takes, because in that very last match, it was the last man standing, and there was no pinfall. And honestly, if I had that 11th second, I know I would have got to my feet. You know what I mean? But that's just the name of the game, is you only get 10. And I took him to the very end, too.
Right.
I know.
If I'm not mistaken, it was you that took him over the ropes. Your own move kind of ended the match for you.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where it was back and forth, and you didn't really know. And I know that he had this viciousness to what he does, right? And it's hard
definitely
to
does. When you watch him, it looks like every move looks so stiff and so painful.
Oh, it's true. And those chops, you know what I mean? Those chops are going to become
Absolutely.
legendary, I think, very soon. It's in this generation. I remember when I was growing up, Ric Flair always had that legend for the hardest chops kind of thing. And I think nowadays, Josh Alexander is going to show that when those things hit, it's like a shotgun blast, So I definitely endured my fair share of those during that, and I was able to survive. I walked away from it, and not only did I survive, but I feel like I proved to people what I had, and that I had what it takes to be on that level.
Definitely agree with you. But going forward, enough of just Josh Alexander. What's the future for El Reverso?
Well, I mentioned my tag partner, Super K. We actually are going to be part of a tag team tournament coming up for Smash Wrestling, where we're going to be able to show not just to PWA crowds, but to other crowds what we can do as a tag team. I really feel that Super K is a very talented individual, or else I wouldn't tag with him. We have that high-flying nature to our style, and we have big plans. We'll see how the tournament goes, but we had the tag titles in PWA, and unfortunately we just lost them. It wasn't due to fair processes. The Temple is a stable that's in PWA, and they're just running roughshod over the roster right now. They're lie, cheat, steal to win kind of thing. They have a manager, Tex Lexus, who when he's on the side of the ring, you can never fully focus on the match. You always got to keep your one eye open on Tex here, and that's exactly what happened. Was I got thrown out of the ring, and Tex was on the far side, and he hit my partner with this book that they have. I hate that book, man. And yeah, unfortunately I wasn't able to get there and make that save in time, so I know we're going to get our shot, because that's one of the things in PWA is they do give the former champions a shot back at their title. So when our time comes, it might be after the tournament, it might be before, I don't know exactly when, but when we get that call, we're going to answer, and we're going to answer hard.
And just for those who don't know, where's PWA based out of?
Well, here in Ontario, they wrestle in Guelph and in Kitchener. In Guelph, it's the Red Chevron Club, and in Kitchener, it's the Alpine Club. But also, Eddie Osborne is a big part of the promotion for PWA, and they have like a little place in Vancouver, basically, where they run a couple promotions as well there too, and they have a school as well. So like, it's not just a local thing. They're trying to branch out and do what they can, like across Canada.
Awesome.
You know?
Also, I frequent the Can-Am gym, and I see you around there. Do you still working there, and have what's your role at the Can-Am gym? I see you there quite often.
Yeah, well, I go a lot. It's not the same capacity as when I first came back when Johnny Devine, like I mentioned, Hotshot Johnny Devine, he was here and he was the main trainer. And I started coming back from that hiatus, and I was training, and then Devine asked if I wanted to be like an assistant and, you know, take some of these practices and stuff. He was someone that he had a lot of faith in me, you know, so I wanted to return that basically, you know, like that show of good faith and show him that I could handle that sort of thing. So it was me and him that were kind of handling the training process, me as an assistant for a while. And then when they had a new class last year in October, Scott kind of wanted to reshift his focus. So, and one of the things that he told me was, you know, I could just focus on myself. It was around the time of the injury too. So he's like, you know, I can just focus on myself, and they were going to have Prince, Bravo, and Nate be the head trainers, but that I was always welcome, that, you know what I mean, at any point when I wanted to go in, that I could do that, and that I'm referred to still as an assistant trainer. So I feel that, you know, the students there, thankfully, because of my presence, they do take heed in the words that I say when I explain something to them, you know what I mean? They do listen. I do feel that. And, you know, it's something that I'll get back to one day. But I think that when Scott told me to focus on myself, that was the best advice I had for the moment, because it really allowed me to just, like, place emphasis on what I needed to do to get to that next level. And you know what I mean? I think it really paid off when, you know, we had Impact here in March. So, you know what I mean? Like for me, like even though that match was a squash, I got to showcase my abilities on a major stage. And, you know, I think it's just the beginning.
Yeah, well, like being in the audience, I hear people, when you come up first, not everybody knows you, and then they see what you can do though against those big guys, and I think you handled yourself really good. It was a great match. You have more? Are we gonna see more of our Reverso on Impact?
Well, I'm gonna be hanging around. I'll be knocking at the proverbial door, as they like to say. So if they don't use me, then they'll be listening to me pretty loud. And if it's not right there here in Windsor on the back step, you know what I mean? Then it's gonna be around the local indie scene, because that's another focus of me moving forward, is just get my name out there as much as possible. Focus on myself, as you know, Scott has told me, and just make sure that like I'm making myself known, and to the point where they can't say no to me, where they say we have to use this guy. You know, he's such an entertaining presence that to keep him off would just be a disservice to the fans.
I think to the fans, I think you're well liked. Border City, the Windsor crowd, they, you know, you took almost 10 years off, and they still remembered you. Like, you know,
that was shocking to me. I'm not gonna lie, to come back and have people remember me. You know what I mean? In this business, it's a short memory, so to have that sort of presence, it was just like humbling, to tell you the truth. So
awesome. Well, is there anything else you'd like to plug before we let you get out of here?
No, just the Can-Am Wrestling School. If you're looking to get trained by the best, and I'd say the Can-Am Wrestling School is definitely, you know, the place to be. Impact Wrestling's coming back to Windsor, Ontario on July 19th and 20th. And if you happen to be in Toronto very soon for the Rebellion show on April 28th, the tapings are the 29th. So just keep your eyes open for Impact Wrestling. I know that Border City Wrestling, we're going to be part of the Essex Fun Fest, and we're also doing a Father's Day show on June 15th. So it's an amazing time to be part of wrestling, especially in Windsor, Ontario.
So that was my interview with our Reverso. It was awesome. He came out, he came down and met me at my school. We shot that interview, talked about a lot of, you know, awesome stuff. I thought, like, it wasn't my interviews. I want my interviews to be like that. Like, we're not going to just sit down and be like, oh, so, well, who's your favorite wrestler growing up? Why'd you become a wrestler? Like, yeah, that story's interesting, but a lot of guys have done so many interviews. The story's been told. I want fresh ideas. So we start with a Reverso like that, you know? That was the first one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll check out more. I'm sure they're going to get better. This was my first podcast I ever done, so I just thought I'd talk. But we do have one segment that we came up with so far that I was told is good by people, my friends, and it's called Tell Me He Did Not Just Say That, where we run a clip of something ridiculous that a wrestler said or did, you know, well, basically said, I guess, because tell me not to say this. And we're gonna start with like, you know, Triple H he's by something, all right. I guess that's what he had to say.
You're not bilingual? Huh? You're not bilingual? There's a lot of fine things I am, but lingual is not one of them. Hey, wait a minute. Did I just mean to say that? I don't think you did, but be that as it may, we're live.
Did he just mean to say that?
Tell me.
Triple H, why?
He didn't just say that.
Why? How? Like, I can't, I don't even have words for that one. He's by something, alright. And certainly isn't by rates. Well, that's been the first episode of the Idle Threat Wrestling Podcast. I hope that you'll join us again. See you next time.